Hello, everyone. Welcome to another live episode of Visual Studio Toolbox. I'm your host, Leslie Richardson, and today we are kicking off the first live show of the year of 2023, and we are starting it off right by talking about what's new in Visual Studio 17.5, which just went GA this morning. So if you haven't already, head on over to the Visual Studio installer and get to updating. Or if you haven't installed Visual Studio 2022 yet, do that as well. Go to the Visual Studio website and hit download and check out all the really cool features that we have to offer in 17.5 and earlier. And I'm excited to bring along members of the Visual Studio team who are going to talk about some of the highlights and why you should check them out once you have Visual Studio installed. So if you'd like to learn more, the blog has been linked in the chat as well. And I can pull up the banner, but it's a pretty long URL. So if you Google Visual Studio 17.5, you should be able to find it, no problem. It's available on the dev blog site. So check it out for more information. And that concludes my intro. We're gonna just hit the ground running and get started by introducing Grace. So, hey, Grace.
Hey, Leslie, how's it going?
It's going great. How are you doing?
I'm good as well. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. So, Grace, before we kick things off, can you tell the world a little bit more about yourself and what you work on?
Yeah, for sure. So my name is Grace Taylor. I'm a product manager on the Visual Studio platform team, and we build experiences that make Visual Studio more comfortable and more flexible for developers. This includes welcome experience, color tabs, guides, what's new, and our latest capability is the quick add capability, which I'm excited to talk to you all about today.
Awesome. So, what you got for us?
So we've probably used the quick add dialog. It has a bunch of templates. You can choose from the ones you want, and it's been around for a while. So we actually gave that dialog a facelift, and we tried to make the experience smoother. It is based on an extension, so some of us might have used something like this in the past. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over to Visual Studio here. I've got a sample repo here, but that's not what I want to talk with you about today. Here in our Solution Explorer, if I right click and if I go to add and new item or Control Shift A, I'm going to get this quick add dialog, and that's what we're calling it. What it is it lets me add a new item really quickly by typing in my file name right here. I can also go to the classic quick add experience by selecting show all templates, which is going to bring up that dialog where I can choose from the different templates. And then if I want to provide feedback on the experience, the team's always listening. So if you give us a thumbs up, thumbs down, there's also a survey that you can take. But what I'm going to do right now is just create a basic CS file. And what that does is it adds the CS file to my Solution Explorer right here. And it is exactly where I wanted to add that. But you can see here that the file that it adds respects my editor config and my settings. So anything that I specified there, it will be reflected in here. Behind the scenes, it uses the templates that I've been talking with you about. So in case we've not familiar with this is the templates experience that it does use behind the scenes. But I'm going to go back to show compact view, which is how I'm going to get back to the quick add dialog. I can also go and add multiple files. So here I'm going to go to one, let's see, file 2.cs. I'm going to click add, and it'll add both of them for me right here. So you see now these three files are the ones I've just added right here. So everything's pretty quick. Right now I've been adding CS files. The cool thing is that, look, if I add a CS file like, hey, file.cs, and then I'm going to go iClient.cs. Let's see what that does. So what it did for me here is that it added iClient. It also added file.cs. If I click on iClient, select that. Oh, just kidding. If I go, let's see, client. Actually, let me just give that another try. I'm going to go ahead. And what that is meant to do, client and iClient, CS, one of them is going to be an interface. That's silly. Okay, so I am on a on the preview, and so there could be a bug with that. But it does.
The I lowercase.
Pardon?
Could it be because you made the I lowercase in front
Oh
of
yes,
my client?
Good catch.
Because I've used this one before I cheated.
It's
worked for me.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're completely right. Good catch. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and bring up that dialog again, iClient.cs, and what that does.
There we go.
Thanks, Leslie. Yeah, it does bring up the interface, so it does understand what's a class and what would be an interface. And then finally, I can also add folders. So if I bring up the dialog again, I can go test/sub folder/sub and / and then click add. It'll add that folder for me. So right here, it has that sub folder right there.
So this is really cool. It gives you a lot of control. Clearly, I like the addition of being able to create folders for you and then just being able to add multiple files at once in particular. I think that is pretty neat in contrast to the default template dialog that you get, which can be nice, especially if you're like looking around or you just want to explore. But like if you already know what you're looking for, this is pretty snappy.
Exactly. Yeah. We got a lot of user feedback around that, and we're still listening to that feedback, and we're hearing that people are making use of this new experience, and we wanted to make that process a little bit faster since this is something that most people use day in, day out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is based off of Mads Christensen's extension, right? Add new item, I think is what it is. Yeah, because I had the one installed. So when I saw that it was like an integrated feature, I was like, when did this happen? What? So
yep, it'll now be in the box. And if you're on an earlier version of a Visual Studio Preview, it'll be under a feature flag. So you can also go and play with that as well.
Excellent. So is this tool in its final form, or is there more to come for it?
We're still evolving it. We're mostly listening to user feedback at this point. I think, after a couple iterations, we've changed a bunch of stuff, and we think, it's pretty close to what it'll be in the end. And we're still continuing to listen though. So if you click the thumbs up, thumbs down button, you can leave us feedback.
Yep, leaving feedback is key. This is how stuff like this happens, right? Like you got a lot of user feedback, which is how we got quick add item.
Exactly. And, the extension's been around for a long time and folks have been using that as well. And so, when it came time for change, for facelift, we definitely listened to the community.
Awesome. Yep. So we do read your comments and stuff. It's not a robot reading them, I promise.
Yeah, it's people like you and I.
Well, awesome. Thanks for sharing that, Grace. And if people want to learn more, this is mentioned in the blog post, right?
Exactly. Yeah, we have a blog post out. We have actually 2 blog posts around this. The main blog post, as well as we have a quick add blog post as well that just came out.
Excellent. Cool. So go check those blogs out if you want to learn more. And yeah, now you have a cool new way to quickly add some files. So thank you, Grace.
Thanks so much, Leslie.
All right. So now we are going to pivot into more of the editor space proper. I kind of subtitled this particular episode 17.5 editor edition because a lot of what we're talking about today anyway are just really cool features that exist in the context of the editor a lot of the time. So up next is Etienne, who's going to share more with us.
Hello, Leslie. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. How you doing?
Good, and you? Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here. So before we dive in, can you tell us a little bit more about what you work on?
Yes, so Etienne, I'm a software engineer on the Visual Studio Editor team. The main focus of my team is to work on the text editor of Visual Studio. So we create the text editor itself, and we provide the API for other people like Roslyn, for example, so they can plug on our editor and create some super cool refactoring tools into Visual Studio. We also own a few other things like the research in Visual Studio. So it's our team that works on things like quick find files, Visual Studio search, these kind of tools.
Excellent. So what you got up first for us?
So I have a bunch of things actually. I have 3 features I would like to show. They're currently all in preview actually in 17.5. If you share my screen, we'll be able to see this. So the first one I would like to show is a new way to do a research into the IDE, into your code. A common issue we had with Visual Studio is that there are too many search bars everywhere. You have a search bar in Solution Explorer, you have one in the error list here, you have Control F, you have Control Shift F, you are having find files, you have just too many search bars. So we are trying to concentrate all this into one search bar, which right now we call it all-in-one search. And you have this new button at the top of your screen that you can enable through the preview feature flag in Visual Studio by clicking the new Visual Studio search experience and restarting your IDE. So if you click on this, you will have access to code search and feature search. So you can use Control T or Control Q. And let's start with feature search. Let's say that in my text editor, I would like to display the white space, for example, because for now they are not visible. So we just press Control Q, and I have this brand new window appearing here, and I can just type white space. And hop, now I can just click on this and directly access the feature here, and done. I have the white space appearing there. Now, another thing I can do is to search for code. And I know a lot of people love to search for their code everywhere to navigate quickly. So now you can press Control T and search for whatever you want. For example, setup. I know this is a method part of my project here. And so I can quickly have all the results. So here we can find a method type with setup. And then, as you can see at the bottom of the screen in this window, you have the whole text editor that preview what you search here. And this is actually a fully functional editor. So you can actually press, for example, Control RR to rename this method into setup window appearance, for example.
Sweet. So you don't even have to open the file. You just
exactly. And done. I press enter and done. It is renamed. Now, another thing I would like to demo, and actually let me navigate to this file. Another thing to demo that is pretty neat is
Before you keep going, is it possible to zoom in a little bit on your screen?
Sure.
It's a bit blurry on the viewer's end.
Is it better this way, maybe?
I mean, that looks good to me, but comment in that if you're still having issues. Sweet.
Awesome. Okay, so another feature I wanted to demo here, and that is something that is currently also in preview and will be upcoming into 17.6. So that's a little bit of preview on what's going on next, is the brace pair colorization. So we often have a bunch of code with a lot of, loop with condition into condition into condition, and sometimes it makes the code a little bit difficult to read. So now, with the brace pair colorization, we'll be able to give a unique color to each parentheses, braces, and that just make it quite easier to read. And it's just literally eye candy.
I agree. I love this.
This is very practical. Now, another thing that I don't know if you noticed, but as I'm scrolling down in my file, I have here at the top of the document, I can see some information about the context where I am. For example, here I can know that I am in this condition, in this loop, in this other condition, and then this method. And so basically this just keep at the top of my screen what context I am on. And so I can see all the method and class I'm scrolling to. Another thing that I like about this feature, in addition that it's like quite easy to know that like right now I am in the setup window appearance, is that if I want to go back to the top of this method, I can just click on it and navigate to it. And by the way, just a comment for myself, is that if I need to scroll back up to see the name of my method, it probably means that my method is too long, that I need to refactor it to make it smaller.
Oh, that is so cool. Okay, to talk about brace colorization for a second. Yeah, I use this one all the time. I remember when it was just like an experimental extension before it's like, I don't know, should we integrate this? I'm like, yes, please do. Because I mean, when you're dealing with like nested blocks of code, especially like crazy for loops or just a lot of nested function calls or
Absolutely.
calls like this is, it just makes it so much easier. Because yeah, you can move your cursor to a parenthesis to see if it's matching up with another one, but you have to move your cursor to do that, right? Here you can just
Exactly.
glance and it's like, well, it's the same color. And can you change the colors of the brace colorization if you wanted to do that?
Yes, you can. You can go into the options, and then if you go to the font and color, you'll be to change it.
Awesome.
I don't remember which name it is exactly. I'm sorry. I will have to ask my coworker for that.
No worries. But the option is there, so that's
Yes,
cool.
it is there.
I love it. And then the other one, which is called sticky scroll.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. I feel like that's one of those features I never knew I needed. Like I use it all the time in like Excel and stuff, right? So it's nice to be able to do it in a similar kind of context when you like, as you mentioned, you have a really long class or a really long method and you can keep track of where you are a little bit better.
Absolutely. Sorry, just to come back on the brace matching, I have my coworker who just notified me that the name is brace matching highlighting. And yeah, that's teamwork. I have teammates who are looking at me right now.
Teamwork makes the dream work, y'all.
Exactly.
I love it. Sweet. And we also got a comment about the all-in-one search. Sebastian had suggested this 6 or 7 years ago. Couldn't live without ReSharper because they're so used to having the code search in the middle of the screen. So yeah, really cool that just the little things like having the search tool centered even is nice. Like I remember when the global search was it up in the corner, like up top right.
Yes, that's the old go-to that appeared there, top right.
Yep. How about that? So yeah, I love having just all these options. And then also it's like if you just want all of it in one spot, you have the all-in-one search to go off of too.
Yep.
So, yeah, these are really cool tools. I use all of these in my life. Like when they just hit the preview scene, I was like, oh, this is so exciting. Little things just like coloring braces and parentheses are exciting to me.
Yes. So yeah, once again, all these things are currently in preview. It's coming soon. We are close from GF on most of them. We keep iterating on it. We keep looking at the feedback from people and react based on that.
Excellent.
So stay tuned.
Sweet. Well, Etienne, thank you so much for sharing this stuff. Definitely check these tools out. I feel like they're super easy to incorporate in your daily development lives.
My pleasure. Thanks.
Thanks, Etienne. All right. And last but not least, we are going to bring Dante onto the scene. He's going to be sharing even more editor stuff. Hey, Dante.
Hey, Leslie. It's good to be back. Glad to see you again.
Yep, likewise. So quick reintroduction for those who may not have seen you on the other bajillion episodes I have you on for.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Dante Gagne. I'm one of the product managers on the editor team. The editor, I've been on the team now for quite a few years now. I've actually been with Microsoft almost 20 or a little over 20 years now. I'm also work on accessibility quite a bit, which is where I put a lot of my time now. And I'm here to show a couple of the more recent features, including one we've been working on for quite a while and I'm really proud of. The first one I want to show, I've got up on my screen right now, is the new Markdown Editor, which just went GA with 17.5. This one's available right now. And we just we get a lot of feedback from folks that they want to be able to edit Markdown right in Visual Studio. They don't want, we have some folks who use Mads has got an amazing Markdown editor. This one, we're still trying to catch up with some of what Mads has got, but this is our kind of our first pass. And we're collecting feedback on the other features that people want with it. But It's a Markdown editor. It has a lot of the basic features that you would expect. It's got your preview window over here on the right. One of the things that our Markdown editor has that not a lot of others have is a actual spell checker. So as I'm typing here, if I type a word incorrectly, the spell checker will come in and it will help show you that, hey, you've got something that's not spelled correctly. So it will help you detect spelling errors in your Markdown. And again, we've got, if you look back in the Visual Studio blog, we did have a blog post where we talked about the Markdown editor, and we're collecting feedback. So we'd like to know what are the features that people want in the Markdown editor. And if people are looking for things in there that currently doesn't have, we'd love to get them in there. One of the things that I know we're working on right now is better editing with lists and things like that. Just quality of life things that we can improve as we go along, but we want people to be able to edit files in the Markdown editor and just improve the experience overall.
I love this. Spell checking, I feel like that would be so useful to me personally. Like there have been times where I'll be collaborating with somebody on a project. One of us will spell a class wrong. And then I'm trying to like access the class and Visual Studio is telling me, no, it's it doesn't exist. And I'm like, why? And then we realize, oh, it's spelled incorrectly. So
yeah.
it's
Well,
yeah.
the spell checker in the Markdown is one thing, but one of the things we've actually, and this one is in the preview, but let me bring up my other file here. We've actually enabled the spell checker for C++ and C# files. So it's only in preview in 17.5, and you can go ahead and bring it up in 17.5 right now. This is my build 17.6, which has got a couple of the improvements in it. So now so this is in a code document, and you can see we've made a spell checker here for C# files. So you can notice here, it recognizes camel case. CHEKK is a misspelled word, and it will pull apart those capital letters, the medial capitals, and say, it doesn't, if in Word, it would say detailed check for issues, the whole thing's misspelled, but we'll pull apart capital letters. This is 4 separate words and detect it. And it'll say over here, hey, that's not a real word, check. Well, do you actually mean CHECK? And since this is an identifier, if I tell it to correct that, it will do a refactor. So it will actually update all the uses of it. It won't just update it in place. So it will go through. You can configure it to do identifiers, you can do comments, you can do in strings, and this version will actually ignore URIs. So contoso.com, it recognizes the HTTP is actually URL, so it will not spell check that. One of the other things that we fixed is now \n/t. Those are escape characters. Twirled and knurled are not spelled; those are not real words. But it recognizes an escape character and says, oh, no, that N is actually part of the escape character. Don't include that as part of the word, and check that world is the word, and it corrects it. There's still more we want to add with this one. One of the important changes that we're doing is adding in language-specific dictionaries. So like ARGs or GUID, those are words that developers recognize but aren't actually part of any specific language.
Right.
We're getting that in very soon. That's one of the reasons why we had planned to release this in 17.5. We actually decided not to go in the GA channel because we got a lot of feedback in the previews that people were getting a lot of false negatives for developer words. And that's one of the big improvements that said, maybe we need to do a little bit longer on this one before it's in the GA channel. So we're holding off just a little bit longer and getting it out there. But there's a blog post that we released, aka.ms vsspellcheck, which, yep, right there. That's got a link to a place where you can give us more feedback. We're collecting all that and we want to do it. Somebody did ask, okay, so I see a couple comments in the comments. So first off, what is the impact on CPU memory? All of the spell checker is done async, so it's off the UI thread. So the impact should be fairly low on CPU memory. If you're seeing impact there, let us know, but it really should be only running on idle, which means if you've got a spelling error, you may need to wait a moment or two for it to get caught, but it should get caught. How do you enable the spell checker? Well, there is an icon up here on the toolbar. It should be on by default for most users. If it's not on, that icon up there on the bar. And by default, it will use English US and whatever language your Windows is using as the default display language. So if you're sitting in Colombia and your Windows is set to Colombian Spanish as the default display language, then VS will use Colombian Spanish and English US as the default languages. You can control all of that in editor config, and the blog post that we put up there will control, you can specify which languages you want. We just decided the default would be that. Again, if you got your Windows set to UK English, well, we'll use both English and UK. When a spelling error is detected, it will give you recommendations in all the languages that you're currently checking against. So you can decide, hey, this is supposed to be a UK English. You can go to the corresponding dictionary to pick which set of suggestions you want to come
Theater
from.
with an RE or theater with an ER.
What language should be specified in the editor config? You'll get your default languages based on your Windows setup, but we recommend setting it in your editor config because that's something that really should travel with your code repo. So you should, when you're setting all that up, know which languages you expect the code repo to be checked in. That's something that should be configured in editor config. I'm sure there will be more questions in there.
Oh, I do want to point out a note. One user had to uninstall Mads's Markdown extension to get the Markdown spell checker to work.
That's a great comment about the Markdown. If you right-click the MD file in the Solution Explorer, I'd have to switch back over to it. You can use the Open With dialog to choose which Markdown editor you want to use. So even if you have Mads's dialog, you should be able to say Open With and pick which editor you want to use and use the set as default to choose between them. Unfortunately, I do have to drop, so if there are more questions, I will come back and try to answer those. But Leslie, as always, glad to get a chance to chat with you, and I will look more for questions here. And again, take a look at that VS Spellcheck blog post. We are reading all of that feedback and trying to respond to them as we go along. We'd love to hear how people are using it, and we've been trying to respond to that feedback and make sure we get as much of that as we can on the blog as we can.
Yeah, all right. Thank you so much, Dante. This is really good stuff.
Hey, my pleasure. Glad to be here again.
Yep. See you later, Dante. Cool. And just, yeah, as an added note on the Markdown integration in particular, thanks so much, editor team. I have been waiting for this. I write a lot of Markdown because I contribute to a lot of documentation as part of my job. So anytime I have to use Markdown, I find it frustrating having to jump over to another editor, like maybe VS Code or whatever, just to use the better Markdown preview experience. So not having to do that anymore is very exciting. So just like the rest of these tools, which are all very exciting. And if you want to learn more, again, you can check them out on the 17.5 blog that just dropped this morning. You can also be sure to update and or install the latest version of Visual Studio 2022 if you haven't already. Do it. You're missing out if you haven't. And yeah, lastly, try out all these really cool features, including the ones that we didn't mention. And if you have any feedback that you'd like to share, we are all ears. A lot of these features did not happen without your feedback that we take note of. So really important that you share that feedback so we can try to make these features the best that they can be so that you can be more productive in your work and your life. And with that, thank y'all so much for joining us on this very snappy, quick 17.5 What's New episode of Visual Studio Toolbox. Thank you to all of the VS team and to our guest on the show today for showcasing what they've been working on these past couple months. And with that, happy coding, y'all. Catch you later.